Shall we do it?
Absolutely.
Let's dive in. All right. Cool. Well, Brad, thank you for being here. This is awesome.
Sure.
So we worked together doing the horns on this album I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm trying to see if the art is anywhere in here. I'll bring in the album cover in a little bit.
Okay.
On Mild Adversity and Shallow Heartbreaks, we just got the test presses in for the vinyl, so I actually finally have the physical
That's so
media. Cool. So we've been working, I feel like it's been like a year we've been like talking about this.
Wow.
Because we started...
Really?
I think so. Because we had wrapped all of everything by September of last year.
Yeah. But I mean, you had been working on this stuff
for like 2 years
long
before that.
For me, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I mean, one of those songs I had like, You Still Do, I'd started like 4 years ago.
Wow.
And then I never know where they're going to go. They just always somehow come together. But I worked with you, so I wanted to do a little introduction on you. And then we're just going to be talking about how we work together, your background in Charlotte, the music community, the work you've done. I don't know. I'm enjoying using this thing as a platform to just tell the stories of all the cool people that I got to work with. Because that was like the most unexpected joy of the whole project was doing all this stuff. And like we had never like made music together in the past. So it's cool.
You didn't know me from Adam's House Cat.
Cool new relationships. All right. Sweet. So, Brad, I've got your bio here, and I found this on an old website somewhere, and I trimmed it down. I have no clue when this is from.
Okay.
But what I found online it says that you are one of the most active commercial trumpet players in the Carolinas. You have toured, performed live, recorded, or on television with many artists, including, and I trimmed the list because it was huge.
Yeah.
The Temptations, the Four Tops, OJs, Spinners, Frankie Valli, Aretha Franklin, Linda Ronstadt, Barry Manilow, a ton of others. You've also been first call for Broadway shows and musicals, including Grease, A Chorus Line, Sunset Boulevard, Dreamgirls, West Side Story, Color Purple, Legally Blonde. I've seen Legally Blonde on Broadways.
Awesome.
Guys and Dolls, The Producer, Spam-A-Lot, The Rat Pack is Back. It keeps going. You've been heard on jingles, recording. You've been playing with the Charlotte Philharmonic Orchestra. You were just telling me all the work you do with local high schools and productions as well. Mm-hmm. You're all over the place.
Cool.
So I guess before we like get into the album and all this cool stuff, I would love to just hear in your words, like how you got here, what you see as your story, dive us through the journey a little bit. I know that's a really open-ended question,
It really is, because
I would love to hear your story.
How far do you go back? But I'll just stick with Charlotte.
Yeah.
So I was touring around the country, and I had played in Charlotte a couple of times.
Okay.
And I thought, it's a nice city. It was clean, equidistant to the mountains and the ocean. A lot of stuff seems to be happening. So I thought, this is a good enough place to settle. Mm-hmm. And I met unfortunately, my now ex-wife here in Charlotte. Anyway, and her family was here, so I thought, hey, it's a good spot. Mm-hmm. So then I started trying to work. I went and met some of the college professors, and then went to some of the jazz jams and jazz concerts and other things. So, and through that, just like everybody does, you go meet as many people as you possibly can, then start to work. And I finally got involved with Central Piedmont Community College at the time, and they did, 3 or 4 musicals every summer, and they did another one in like the fall. And so somehow or another I got involved in that, and so I did that probably 7-8 years.
Okay.
And then because I had done those, then you meet those players, and then they tell other players, and then it just starts to blossom, right? Uh-huh. And then how I got involved with some of those acts that you mentioned, there was a guy that was a longtime Las Vegas trumpet player, and he was actually from Charlotte.
This is the horn broker that you've told me about?
Yeah, horn contractor.
Horn contractor, that's the right word.
That's cool, yeah. And he had built a relationship with the Temptations of Four Tops, Frankie Valli, Aretha Franklin, all the groups that we talked about. And so we started playing a couple of gigs together, and then because of that, we befriended each other, and then I started doing touring with those folks, and so that's on and off for 35 years.
That's so
at
cool.
least, And then because of that, then other people get to know you and say, oh, this person's working. So then I started doing all the Broadway stuff. And
that's so cool.
And then as far as recording goes, another real strange happenstance. The largest karaoke company, like all the backing tracks in the country, on the planet, was Sound Choice. If you've ever seen that label, it says Sound Choice.
Did they re-record all those stems?
We recorded every bit of that. And that was done right down in Carowinds Boulevard. There was a studio down there, and we did thousands and thousands and thousands
That's
of
amazing.
tunes.
What was the studio called?
Sound Choice.
Oh, it's their own spot.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that. I always just naively thought that the labels distributed the stems without the lyrics. Nope. They're re-recording those whole things.
Every bit. So they would send us the original tunes, and back in those days, it was on a cassette.
Yeah.
and then
you
finally
have to
got to be where
too.
And so we had to transcribe our parts. If you were playing drums, you did that. If you'd played keyboards, you did that. Second background vocal, you did that. Trumpet, I transcribed every one of those.
And if they're
parts.
sending you like a stacked part, you have to figure out
Correct.
Okay, 2 parts. I hear a whole step here.
Yeah.
They're playing a fifth on this part.
Correct.
And then you have to figure out how you're going to track the two because you don't know if one person was high the whole time or if that's crazy.
Right. Well, and you imagine we did everything from the current pop stuff of the day all the way back to 20s, the 40s or whatever. And believe me, some of those 40s harmonies, people know the song In the Mood. Right? There ain't no way you could transcribe verbatim the fourth trumpet part.
Yeah, how big was Glenn Miller's band at that point in time?
Well, there were 5 trumpets.
Oh, my God.
But I'm just talking about the harmonies themselves, because it's not just and we're marching upward. No, man, those things were weaving in and out of the chords and everything. It was crazy.
My dad tells stories of my grandpa was in World War II, and they always had bands playing out at forts and stuff. And he talks about grandpa, and this was before my dad was born, that he came back and was just obsessed with Glenn Miller. Yeah. After his time in the service. It was God, they could not get enough.
Yeah, so on those songs, it took me a while to do, but then other songs that had a couple of half notes in a pop tune, I was like, I won today.
I sympathize with every drummer that has that gig. There's so many songs that have drum intricacies.
Oh, yeah.
That are just impossible to recapture.
Right. Well,
impossible.
And that's the same thing with every part, if you think about it.
True.
I would literally try to, if someone cracked a note or was a little funky on some note, you got to try to emulate that, really.
Yeah.
So, we did a lot of cartoon music themes, like Scooby-Doo.
And you've heard those a million times.
But the nuances that are actually happening in the background, you got to try to mirror. I don't know. It was a lot of fun.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So then tell me about playing with all these big bands, all these classic acts. Mm-hmm. So how does that work? I know you had recently played with Frankie Valli, right?
Oh, yeah.
So how does that work? They've got a tour coming up. They book the dates, and then management reaches out to your friend, and y'all put a section together? How?
In that case, the music director that has toured with Frankie for, I don't know, at least 40, 50 years maybe.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time.
Nice.
So, and also, to be fair, because of that horn contractor, I developed the relationship. And also, as a side note, the music director for Frankie Valli actually grew up in the area that I grew up in, around St. Louis,
cool.
In southern Illinois, a little small town.
Yeah.
And so that also kind of gave us a little spark,
Right.
So when he's in this area, whether it's Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, wherever, around here, he calls me.
That's too cool.
So it used to be that group had 9 or so horns. And now it's down to they only hire 1 trumpet, 1 trombone, and then they have a sax player that tours with them.
That's cool. There were videos from this recent tour that were going super viral online too.
Yeah.
Because people are just
Maybe not in the best way.
Well, not in the best way, but at the core of it, I actually really found it to be endearing, which was just like the love of the music is like,
well, that's true. So what we're referring to is the fact that, I should divulge that.
Well, let's
people who don't know.
He's just been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, well, he's 91.
Yeah.
All right? I'm not going to say much more than that, but it's evident that he's 91.
I find it to be very endearing.
Right? But the music is the music. It's his voice, whatever. I think it's great. Cool. So, those songs just transcend time.
Yeah. I heard a cool quote the other day. Someone quoted Charlie Watts from the Stones, and he had said it at one point in an interview. He says he thought the gig would last a couple weeks. Like, they called him up. They're like, "Oh, we need someone to play," and he's like, "Oh, I'll do this for a couple weeks." Like, and then now it's, they're counting decades, not weeks. They're counting semi-centennials at this point.
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
Pretty cool to me.
And then the Temptations of Vortops do have tin horns, and it's everything's all charts,
Nice.
So we go in and read it. But at this point we do know it. I mean, there's maybe some things I could probably play from memory, but half the time they're kind of switching things up, believe it or not, really? Even after all this time.
I was going to ask how tight those shows are versus
they're 100% tight.
Yeah, but there's
music
no
directors, accident.
Yeah,
on those, right?
Yeah.
And there's not, we talked about before we started this interview, how like in your show you might want to, take a vamp a little bit longer or kind of do something a little bit different, which is great. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's your thing.
Yeah.
But their show, verbatim.
Well, people know those forms so well too.
Yes.
Like if you've been singing along to a song in the kitchen for, your whole life, if you're coming out of the verse and the bridge doesn't hit on the downbeat.
Yeah.
It can be jarring, right?
For the audience, you're right. So, well, the best example of that, I love this story. I love telling this story.
Okay. I
had a good friend of mine who was a trumpet player and toured with Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Sweet.
All right, so we all know those parts. It might be simple. Beat up, right? They got tired of them. So they said, "Man, we're going to rewrite everything."
The horn section.
The horns, yeah. So the horn section, they rewrote everything and kind of like this Las Vegas thing and all this crazy stuff, and didn't sound anything like what everybody knows.
Yeah.
They went to the first few cities with that, and the producers or promoters and the audience was livid. They hated every minute of it, and they were forced to change it back to.
I'm surprised a music director somewhere didn't shut that down. Yeah, they're so good. They're famous for a reason.
I know.
That's funny. There's like this Steely Dan live album where they play Reelin' in the Years, and it's a completely different section, and people loathe it. but my dad is always like, "You got to listen to the Alive in America, Reelin' in the Years."
Right.
It also depends. You're also not always playing to musicians that have played the forms and have like vamped over them. Like, it's such a fine line between like, it's so easy for me to like write and assume that everyone in the audience is thinking about it the way that I'm thinking about it in terms of like, how can we have fun during the form and the structure? Right. How can we like add intricacy or surprises? But then I have to also realize like,
they've never heard it.
They've never heard, exactly. And like, I'm not playing hit songs either.
To them.
Yeah. There's a beauty to not having
That's called musician boredom.
Yeah.
It truly is, man.
Yeah. It's like, well, we've been playing this song forever, so what can we do with it?
Yeah. Well, at least I think about your own journey with having some of these songs you've been working on for 4+ years.
Yeah.
Maybe more, really, in seedlings back there, right? And so, and then you got to play them live and finally got them recorded, all the stuff. But the world has never heard them. I don't care how many thousands of times you sat in this very room and, listened and remixed and
I mean, how many versions of mixes did I send you when we were working on it? Yeah, and that's so tough, too, because, like, the album isn't even out yet, and I'm already starting to hit a little bit of, like, all right, what's next?
Yeah,
we were in the studio last weekend, we recorded 9 new songs.
Yeah, got to be careful of that. I mean, I get it. You want to still, keep your energy up and be fresh and whatever, and you got other ideas that come to your head, but, enjoy the moment too.
I'm really bad about like excitement and novelty, or like, because for me, putting the music out is stressful. I'm being perceived. I'm having to like, I feel like I'm having to like present a certain thing in like the way that like we're rolling out the album. Like there's like there's imagery to all of it. The fun is like me sitting here at like 10 p.m. like, what happens if I put distortion on? Like, what happens if I distort the flugelhorn during the solo? Right. That I ended up pulling that one off. That one I went a little too overboard when we did that one. Yeah. I like that.
You put a little wow wow on it. Wow wow.
That's cool. Yeah, amp it out and put it actually at my foot. I've never thought about that. That's super cool. Yeah. So coming back to the shows, has there been any of these tours, any bands that you've played with that have really like stood out to you in terms of experience, involvement?
Oh gosh.
Any like particular stories or anything?
I'll refrain from negative stories.
Yes.
How's that? Because I have some.
Only if they're anonymous.
I don't want to ruin people's perceptions of
positive.
something. Yeah. That's because it really, at the end of the day, even those negative experiences, the actual show and actual playing was fantastic. Yeah. You know, what a gas. You know,
it happens all the time. Well, like play or like, not to interrupt.
No, that's good.
But especially like being friends with musicians. Or my own shows, like you'll finish and everyone will be like, that's awesome. And I'll go congratulate my friends that have just played. And they'll confide in me because they, like, you know, we share the same craft. Like, God, that sucked. They're like, I couldn't hear myself. I was out of sync with the guitars. And then we're like, that was an awesome show. Right. You sold the place out. You played so good.
Yeah.
It's tough to separate it.
Yeah.
Sorry, back to you.
No, you're good. You're good. Well, you know, you try to be as spot on as you possibly can. You know, I've never heard a single musician ever that hasn't cracked a note, for example. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you try to minimize those occurrences, but, you know, stuff's going to happen. You're a human. Better than a machine, that's for sure. So
please, no machines in music. Please, no.
Yeah, well, AI is thinking it can take us over, but I don't think so yet.
I think it's just a tool.
Yes, agreed.
It's just a tool.
But anyway, you know, man, I have just as much fun. We were talking about, and this is not to belittle or put on a different tier, playing high school shows. I do some of the schools in the area do their musicals. And they hire professional players to come either supplement the student musicians or actually play all of the pit music for their shows.
Yep.
And then that culminates, not to get too far off on a tangent, but that culminates in a big award show in about the middle of May. It's kind of like the Tony Awards for this area's high schools. Nice. And so there's 56 or 7 schools involved. So they do like best actor, actress, best set design, all the stuff. And it's televised on WTBI. And then the winners of that, and again, I didn't want to go too much in this because I don't waste your time, but the winners of that go on to New York and compete nationally. And the winners from Charlotte have won the whole thing several years.
Really?
It's really uncanny. Anyway, all that to say is that I have just as much fun doing that as I do with some of the bigger shows. So
well, and that's what we were talking about before. We should have started rolling the mics earlier. But like you doing that, I was telling you stories about like doing drumline and having like our drum corps coaches come in. And like, especially when I was still doing drumline, I never thought I would switch to piano. I thought I was going to play drums my whole life. Mm-hmm. So I still do. But those like bringing in someone that's like doing it professionally, and it's so different than like the cheesiness of like a career fair where you're like walking around talking to people like, you do this, you do that. You're like playing with them, right? It's very different than someone telling you what they do. If you are like, hey, would strap on a snare drum and play the part right next to us, and I was like, oh, like I can hold my own. If he's playing it, I'm playing it, like this road continues. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And that's great that you had that experience. I worry about that actually for this generation, to be honest with you, because I think, you know, who are their heroes and who are they influenced by? You know, not that I say that, you know, certain times were better, it's just different, you know. but like I can remember in high school, the bands of the day, like Buddy Rich, Maynard Ferguson, Woody Herman, all those bands were touring around. They would come to our schools and do clinics. So you literally get to talk with those players. That's heroes.
That's really cool.
To us then.
Yeah.
And then since then, I've actually gotten to play with a bunch of them, so it's even cooler.
You come around, you're like, I was a lot smaller last time. Right. That's so awesome.
Pretty cool.
Check it out. I got pretty good at trumpet over the last couple of years.
I practiced a lot, right? Yeah, right.
A lot of hours staring at a wall playing.
Man, I've spent a lot of hours even in a stairwell. You got to
Well,
find wherever you
good.
can. Yeah, to practice sometimes.
I think my years of playing keyboards set me up to stare at walls because they always get pushed up. I remember like going to the music school at UNC, and I was doing some jazz piano, and they've got all the practice rooms where you could go down there. Yeah. There was always like a really beat up upright piano or like a console piano, and they're just in these little slapboard rooms pushed against the wall, and you're just stare at the white cinder blocks for hours. How many different versions of this chord progression can we voice while staring at this cinder block wall?
Guess what? You still have to do it, don't you?
I've gotten so bad. My practice schedule is bad.
Okay.
It's bad. But I play with friends.
Yes. And you play a lot.
Time. Yeah. And we're always over here. Like, we're set up to just plug in and play.
Right.
So I chastise myself for not practicing, and I'm not practicing, but playing with other people is a different muscle.
Yeah.
And I like that.
100%.
And I think that makes it easier for us to get on stage without the full plans and know that I can read each other's minds.
Yes.
Like I know someone is going to, we're going to do this whole step jam if we don't know what to do because it's just safe. That's our home base.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
I would rather play with musicians who enjoy being around each other, who connect in the way you just described.
Yeah.
Like the guys that I had play on your
And I was about to ask about them.
Okay. So, I mean, I didn't mean to switch to that, but it's exactly that. I can watch their body language.
Yeah.
And we know when we're going to breathe. We know when we're going to swell or come down. You know what I mean? That's hard to replicate.
Yeah.
And so you can have a bunch of superstars that can play rings around everybody, but they can't play very well with people.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have the former.
Amen. So for context,
when
we recorded, we worked together and we wrote all the parts, and we can get into how we wrote the scores. But then when it came to actually tracking it, we did all of it here at my home studio.
Yeah.
And I had no clue what I was doing. You helped me a lot with just figuring out how to set up the mic.
You did great.
I had never tracked horns before. I mean, I've tracked a lot of bands, but I've never tracked a live section. And you brought in Keith and Tim to come play sax and trombone. So tell me a little bit on how you know them, what y'all been playing together in, and I'm sure the list goes on and the road list goes on.
A lot of it mirrors my own because we've played together a lot.
True.
Tim has actually played with the Timpson Tops and all that stuff longer than me.
Okay.
Because he's older than me. No, man, he's probably played with them for about 40 years or so.
Really?
Yeah. So, and Keith, a little bit later on in the time period there, but we played tons and tons of things together.
And to fill everyone in, Tim on trombone, Keith on the saxophone. And
flip that.
Sorry. Total brain fart.
It's okay.
I'm looking at the room mirror image. And for trombone, we had trombone and bass trombone.
Yeah, Keith Johnson on trombone and Tim Gordon on sax.
And for sax, we tracked a tenor sax and baritone sax.
Yeah, I'm not sure we had any alto.
I don't think we did.
Yeah.
And then you played trumpet and flugelhorn that day.
Yeah.
So sorry, continue. You were introducing them and...
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with it. That was about it.
So have y'all done a project like that before where y'all are tracking together? Do y'all do that all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time.
Did y'all play together?
We do a lot at GAT3.
Okay.
For various projects. They'll call us in for different bands and so forth. And
then mixed some tracks
that
were just recorded over there the other day.
Cool. And then we also, Keith a little came a little bit later
Okay.
on the sound choice days of karaoke stuff. But the three of us were the horns on all that stuff.
Nice.
So
That's too cool.
Yeah.
And it was just so smooth. And a big thing that I wanted to do that y'all liked it as well because it moved faster was we tracked everything together. I don't want to. I hate getting into like isolation and perfection land.
Yeah.
Because it just turns into neuroses really fast. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like I get away from the music. So y'all were in there and we'd cut it live. And if we missed a certain part, we never went back and just one person punched that part.
Yeah.
Because we were getting room mics.
Right.
So then, like, if one person missed a note, I was keeping notes, and y'all also would come back, and y'all would cut that section together.
We would be honest and say, hey,
right?
This needs to be redone. Yeah.
And it was super cool. Just like there's a cool, it's what I like about music is like the shared experience. Yeah. Like one person misses a note, everyone retracts it together.
Yeah. Sure. Well, and it keeps it organic that way. Yes,
yeah.
Yes, you have the oral aspects of it because you have the mics a certain way and you got the room mics together. And blah, blah, blah. But yes.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah, if like you cut it out and one person did it differently, someone might play a run like more staccato or they might swing it a little bit.
Right. Well, that's why I also try to be overly like in the notation of the charts. I try to be overly articulate, I guess, so that everybody knows exactly what to do. Now, there's certain little nuances, like I was talking about us watching each other's body language. You know, there's certain little things like that make it music, right?
Yeah.
You can't really write it, you know. You just have to feel it together. So, but anyway, for the most part, I take the guesswork out of it when you're reading it.
And it was huge. But even then, like I remember y'all like would run a section and like it was cool. Like you very clearly had it in your head and were like leading and guiding us all together on it. And you'd be like, all right, like, hey, the feel here should be this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
that's
you
when
helped
it gets a ton with that too. Gee whiz. Your input throughout the whole thing was crucial.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to keep it moving.
Well, yeah, and you did that. I have some people that are totally hands off and they say, hey, here you go and figure out some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Which, that's fine. I can do it. But, man, to have that input, you know, I thought was great.
In my head, I was like, we've been going for like 4 hours on a weeknight. It's
you mean
late.
in here? You're talking about, yeah.
I'm like, I just want to keep us rolling. For the input, yeah. So let's talk about like the actual scoring process and how we wrote the parts, because that was really cool for me.
Yeah.
Because I would send you a track, and we had tracked it with the full band, but we left space.
Yeah,
and
it was really smart.
And I had no clue what it was like. And I like ambiguity stresses me out in general. I like structure, form, knowing what's going to happen.
Listen to you. All right.
Well, and then we go jam on stage. But like as a person, when I'm like making the recordings is very different than the recreation of playing.
Right.
And so like we went and tracked these songs and we'd be playing and I'd be like in the talkback, I was like, all right, now vamp for 16 bars. There's going to be a solo here. I don't know what the solo is going to be. Right. I don't know what the energetic flow of it is. Right. But like, hold it.
It might be a soli section for the horns or whatever it might be. Yeah.
But it would be like, hold it and then like scoop at the end into the downbeat. And then we would talk and then I'd be like, here's a reference. And now I'll pass it to you because what happened after there was black box magic. You would send me back a file of just like a rendering of what it would sound like.
Yeah. Which is really difficult. Well, let me explain to people what I did.
Okay.
So you send me the tracks which you described and thank you for leaving the space. So many people just like dump every chord they know and every measure and like, well, see ya. Yeah. I've got nowhere to be, man.
Yeah.
One of the things that always impressed me listening to music over the years and actually reading and learning about arrangers is they know where to fit in the spaces, and you don't have to take up every space. That's not the point. It's just to stay out of the way of what the melody and what the lyrics are trying to say, and maybe what the spirit of the song is trying to do. So that's what I try to do with anything. So if I have no space, it's really difficult. So you're really smart about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so I would write it in a program called Sibelius.
Yep.
And I'd have it all in my head. Sometimes I'd scratch it out. Sometimes I'd go straight to Sibelius.
And are you doing that on your instrument, or are you like humming it? Because you did a mix of melody and counterpoint.
Yes.
So when you're in melody land, where is that starting?
First of all, I'll go back to the sound choice days. Because I've done so many of those and had to transcribe every bit of that, I am to the point, or was even back then, I don't need an instrument to write.
Yeah.
So I hear it, and I know what key it's in, and I know what the chords are, so I can write it to that.
That's
so
cool.
I don't need a reference point, per se. Every once in a while, I'll pick up my horn and say, or whatever, or something in Sibelius, because it spits out the sounds as well. So I can hear something go, oh yeah, I wrote that, but I meant this, or this might sound better.
But you can hear, you have a direct link from your ear to your hand to the sheet music.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it is a little bit in my head. Like you said, do I sing some of it? Yeah. Because I might sing along with it, but
it
I don't
translates.
have any. Yeah.
That's so amazing.
I don't know. I guess it's just from years of doing it.
Yeah. I have never gotten to the point where I have felt that I have that on the piano, where I have the idea and then I play. I'll figure it out. Especially if I know what key it's in. It can only be a certain amount of notes. But that immediate translation is so cool.
Yeah.
Because I do the same thing. But I will sing gibberish.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, okay, well if it's within the key, it's probably around here. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, then once I've kind of finished what I think it should be, then there are synth versions of each instrument that I can export out of that software, and I marry that to your tracks.
Yep.
So that it gives you at least a little bit of a sense of what it might sound like. Real horns, which I cautioned you constantly, are going to sound different.
Yep.
And so, is that necessarily the best way? I don't know. With you, I think I learned something a little bit more about that process.
Okay.
Is that it's hard for you to hear what I hear when you hear those synth sounds, because they're not balanced as well. They're not really the timbre. They can't really articulate the way that I know that we'll articulate.
Yeah.
Some of the scoops and dips and whatever that I write,
I remember
it sounds like shark. I know it's embarrassing, man. So I get that. So, but at least it gives you an idea where I'm headed.
Okay.
So that's really the only reason I do that.
I never felt that was that much of an obstacle, because I remember you were constantly wanting to remind me of how much better it was going to be when we played it.
Right.
But I felt I was more listening to what the movement was. Okay. Maybe subconsciously. It was, but I didn't feel like it impacted me as much as you were giving me heads up that it might.
Well, we had a couple of times, I think, where it wasn't. I never felt conflict from you. I just thought, oh, this guy's got a different idea. He's either reining me back on something, or he's saying, that's good, but can we try another way? And that was cool with me.
I feel like we did 6 revisions on Halfway to the Edge. I think I drove you crazy on that one. I felt like I was driving you crazy on that one.
No. It's good.
That was a really crazy process for me, because I
think I needed the help on that one, to be honest with you, because I think I did that one
a lot simpler. I think.
Say it again.
Didn't we end up somewhere a lot simpler than the original arrangement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think by that point that was one of the one of the last couple of tunes that we did, and I don't know whether it's, you can get ear blind, whatever that phrase is, and so I think maybe that was happening with me. So you helped.
I love where we landed.
Yeah, good.
That was so cool, and some of them we never touched. There were somewhere you were just reading my mind or doing things that I love. but I had not communicated to you. That was really cool to see. So like, there's this Earth, Wind & Fire song called Runnin', and I love that song.
Okay.
And there's a big change up in the song. I think it's like a key change. And he hits it on vocals before the whole band and like holds this note, and the note is really out of place.
Oh, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then the pads come in, and then all of a sudden the note makes sense, and you're like,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's so good. And on You Still Do, there's that key change at the end where the whole song is in G.
Yeah.
And then it goes to that like F minor-y spot. And you did a similar thing, but I had never communicated that like that's what I wanted to do there. And you sent me the part, and like you guys hit that F a measure
that
before
was a
the
gift
band.
From God.
Yeah, exactly. The 11th commandment to hit the downbeat of measure early.
Right.
And I remember like here my whole family was in town, and we had like rented this mountain cabin. There was like 17 of us. And I was like, Dad, come check this out. Like, I just got these horn parts back. And we were listening to it. And we were like, oh man, this is cool. This one's like really, it's got a very Chicago-y feel.
Yeah.
That one more so than the other ones. It's like Chicago and Little River Band.
And you cautioned me on that a little bit, I remember, right? Like, don't be too Chicago. Because I think one of the first versions I did for you had a little more scoops and a little more Chicago-y type stuff. And you said,
Yeah, we landed a little funkier on all of them.
Yeah. That's cool.
And I remember we heard that note, and me and my dad were just like, he did the thing! It's like, this is awesome. My favorite thing in music. Aww. But, I mean, that one is less extreme because it's still mostly within the key, but it was cool. Awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
So, we were talking about the arrangements. You were talking about how you fit in versus the song. I would love to know, like, and a lot of this is not conscious, I'm sure, but how are you going through and deciding, like, where to stick out and add the melody lines versus supporting a chord with a pad or hitting a counterpoint between notes?
I think you're right about that. It's kind of more of a feeling.
Yeah.
My objective, again, is always to not really be in the way so much.
Yeah.
Because especially if they're good songs, which these were.
Thank you.
I mean, it's the truth, man. They're great tunes. Old school vibe with new school energy. I don't know. I identified with them, That's Otherwise, I wouldn't have worked on the project. I mean, it's the truth. There's people that send me stuff, seriously, that I'm like, I don't know if I can help you. Because I don't get it.
And your time's limited, too.
Yeah. So, these I totally connected with. So, a lot of times they wrote themselves.
That's cool.
To me.
So then when you are scoring it, are you like conscientious of, because all the dynamics were very clear too, of where it's support versus where you're pushing. Correct. So then is that like post fact, you're like thinking about how it sits, or are you conscientious when you come up with a part, you're like, we're really driving the melody, like in Catch My Groove, the 8-minute big funk piece in A, you're driving a lot of the, like that da-da-da-ba, ba, ba-da-da-da-da,
yeah, but that was also driven by you guys' vibe.
Yeah, I guess it all just plays together.
I don't know. And then the build of all that is the same thing. It's kind of like we talked about. I can feel the energy of the other guys. I felt that with you. What you all were doing. So I try to kind of match that. Because
we recorded that live.
Yeah.
So, we overdubbed a lot of the guitars and vocals, but all, the rhythm section and anything driving what you feel.
Yeah.
Like, everything that hits your hips and not your brain.
Right.
We were in that room just, looking at each other. Mm-hmm. We had drank more coffee than any human being should ever consume in a day because we had been tracking for 8 hours. That was one of the last ones we did on that day. But, I don't know, the kind of delirious takes are some of my favorite ones.
Right.
Like, when we were recording last weekend, we were, reaching up into, 8 takes on one song, back to back to back.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in the Beatlesy George Martin philosophy where they'd, be writing it, and you, look at the notes, you're like, let it be, take 42, and you're like...
Right.
I don't think a lot of good happens after a 5th take.
Yeah.
I think like first and third are usually going to be the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, somebody told me one time. They said at the end of the day, we could do 1,000 takes or whatever. Yeah. It might just be different, not necessarily better.
Yeah,
that was a good lesson, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other lesson was directly from James Brown, and he was in Charlotte recording. And he said, he did a take, and they said, "Oh, Mr. Brown, that was great. Man, would you like to do another take?" And he said, "Son, let me tell you something. Yeah. The first take is from God. All other takes are from man. I go with God."
So that's
another great story.
That's what he meant when every time he'd scream, "Give me the one."
Yeah, that's right.
He wasn't talking about downbeats, y'all. One take.
That's it. Well, and he could do it too. But I agree with you. Like that energy, there's something about those first few. I mean, if you really truly, slip on a banana peel or whatever, then that's one thing. But sometimes that energy of those first few takes are pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you miss a note, you just punch it. Get the good take.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here having this thought, and I had tried to write out some of these questions about arrangement and how you arrange. But I'm also realizing based off your answers that I have the same experience where none of this stuff is really conscientious a lot of the times. It's you spend a lifetime listening to music and deciding what you like. And there are these things. You just pick up the things.
Yeah.
There's the Tower of Power thing. There's
mm-hmm.
we were tracking guitars this weekend. And we were doing this one, and I was like, "Do the Average White Band thing." And I told the guitarists, and they're like, "What's the Average White Band thing?" I was like, "You've been doing it all day." Or you were doing it in rehearsal. You guys do it every time,
right?
Go back to that. We changed it. Go back to it. What's the thing? I was like, one person's strumming. And one person's picking. So one person hitting diddly 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 diddly, and the other one's hitting the and they're dancing with each other.
And that's counter to each other, but not in the way.
Yeah.
Right.
That's I was
complimenting each other, right?
Do the Average White Band guitars.
Yeah.
The band Parcels, they do that better than anyone right now of new bands. Gotcha. They're crazy.
Cool.
That's the most locked in band I've ever seen. I'll send you some of their stuff.
I'd love to hear it.
But, 5-part harmonies, vocal harmonies on every song.
Oh, cool.
And they released a live take. It was an hour-long live cut. And you could see, no cuts. They just play for an hour.
Yeah.
All the songs weave into each other. And I remember, watching that being they dubbed all these harmonies. This is all auto-tune. No way. No band can sound that good for an hour. And then I saw them live.
Yes, they can. Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Awesome.
Apparently they all lived in one apartment together for a year when they were cutting their teeth playing music.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd just sit in the living room and harmonize for a year. And I guess that's what it takes.
Wow.
They're crazy.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening to a little bit of St. Paul and the Broken Bones.
God, they're so good.
For some reason, I don't know, they keep popping up and okay, yeah, I really like that.
Oh, we saw them live in 2014 or 15.
Yeah.
And they were just getting traction.
Yeah.
I haven't kept up with them. That would be a good band for us to try to get in touch with and open for. Because they do this thing. Theirs is a little more singer driven, whereas I think we're more instrument driven.
Mm-hmm.
But God, he's amazing. That band is
that's very fun.
Rock solid.
Talk about old school. He really is.
Yeah.
But with that energy, though, it's really cool.
Yeah, and he dresses up. I've always been against dressing up.
Yeah.
I've always, radical authenticity has been, this phrase that I've kept very close. And it was I'm not going to put on a character. I'm not going to do any of this thing. If I'm going to play music as myself, I'm going to be myself.
Okay.
But, we dressed up for the music videos. And then we did it for the live show. I was like, this makes such a difference. This is a full sensory experience now.
Right.
And I think everyone was getting grumpy when we were loading in and the horn section. And I hired more people.
Yeah.
And then we had extra guitarists and everyone was like, are we dressing up? I was like, oh, we're dressing up.
Absolutely.
But then everyone was open to it. And I was like, why do I feel like I am embarrassed to tell these people to do this? Because then once I told it, everyone was like, oh, cool, we have stuff. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Because they're all dogs. They're pros. They play all over.
Exactly.
I think I was the only one that had the aversion to it. And then they all looked so good. And the videos, I was like, it just elevates the videos to another level.
Yes, totally agree. Well, it makes it a show.
Yeah.
That's it. Versus just like, hey, I'm playing in a bar.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's the next notch.
I do love playing at a bar.
Well, of course.
A couple weeks ago, I told you we just recorded all these new songs. Mm-hmm. We booked a show at Smokey Joe's.
Oh, awesome.
Under a fake band name.
Yeah.
And like didn't really tell anyone.
Thanks.
Yeah. But like we just showed up and there was a ton of people that we did not know. And we just played all these new songs with like no heads up. Didn't tell anyone we were doing it. Didn't tell anyone in the crowd we were testing new material.
A great venue to do it. Yeah.
And very quickly we were like, this song works. Oh, this song, like, hey, we lost the energy here.
Huh. Okay.
Or like we came up with a new intro.
And that something like that, not to stop you there, but something like that could be like where you placed it in the set or how you set it up, versus like whether the song really wasn't that happening or not, It
was so cool. Yeah. Because we had been like tracking to a click, very tight, precise. Sometimes go to like, we're going to go out and we're going to drink beer and play with no click and to people we don't like, as loose as possible. Yeah, right. And I think we took it a little too far on the looseness train. I was hurting the next day. That's not my repertoire. Right. It was an artistic experience.
Yeah. Most of the things that I do, man, were like 99.999% of the things I do, I could never drink or do anything.
Yeah, no, God.
Because it's too focused for me.
Yeah.
Not only from an instrument perspective, but from paying attention and reading and stuff like that. It's too important for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
so
I have done it, though.
Hey, delicate balances.
Right.
Delicate balances.
Right. There was a place in Delray, Florida called Boston's, and it's a little beach dive bar.
Yeah.
And I used to play reggae and like.
Did you live down there for a while?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just all kind of just island-y type tunes and just.
That's fun.
All right.
But that also flows with the music.
Oh, yes.
Right?
You almost have to be.
Yeah. When they say behind the beat, you could get there by many different measures.
Right.
That's awesome. So I guess let's talk a little bit about the live show too. Because so we covered your background. We talked about all this stuff. We talked about recording the record. I also then went to you after we'd finished the record, one, to help put together some parts for covers that we were playing.
Yeah.
Some covers that didn't even have horn parts.
Right.
And then we also stripped down some of the songs to be like three-piece section.
To back up a little bit, I try to be cognizant of the fact that you may do these live at some point. At the same token, also taking a little bit of liberty in a recording session to accentuate things and have more horns than you would live. I mean, you could have had 15 horns there, but it's not practical. So,
I like the way you did it, though. It was intuitive and easy to like scale up and down.
I mean, I didn't blow it out on every song. I mean, most of the songs I did stick to just the three.
Yep.
We might have double tracked them, but I tried to be cognizant of that. But then for your live show, you definitely only wanted three, so we had to kind of rework some of the harmonies to make sure that they sounded good together with just the three, which I sound like it did.
It was awesome.
And then, and like you said, you did a few covers and wrote some stuff for that too. So
I thought it was super cool hearing, especially the song. Like we played a Greg Allman tune, "Let This Be a Lesson to You," and that song does not have horns to it.
Yeah,
but then
I don't remember it now. I mean, I kind of do, but
you were doing these like da da ba ba da da because it's just doing these like fourth jumps in the chorus. But it was so cool. Like it was cool when we were doing it on my songs because I had left space for it. Yeah. But then when we were trying to put a show together, you have to give people things that are familiar. So we played "Gotta Get You Into My Life" by the Beatles. We kind of mixed the Beatles and the Earth, Wind, and Fire version.
Right. That was fun.
That was really fun.
And a great idea, too.
And we did "Ride Like the Wind" by Criss Cross.
No horns.
Yeah. No horns. But you had them play the strings parts and the counterpoint. Yeah. We got a call we got to call Chris Cross and Michael Omardian because this song does pretty good with horns.
Awesome.
I mean, that was like one of the biggest successes of the show.
Huh.
To like people went nuts during that song.
Great.
And it was hilarious because I'm looking down, like I'm looking at all my friends, and we're all 30, and we're like screaming the lyrics to this Chris Cross song. And I was like, how we landed here? Like,
awesome.
And it was also
that song lives on, man. It
it's
does.
just so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And it's also very funny that like that big like the yacht rock documentary had just come out too.
Oh gosh.
So like we had been working on this for a year, then the documentary comes out, and now everyone's screaming the lyrics of this Chris Cross song and like asking us if we're gonna play like Steely Dan and Boz Scaggs. I was like, what is happening?
I love Boz Scaggs. Yeah.
It's just too good. You did the Greg Allman tune,
yep.
And then there was one more. Spanish Moon by Little Feat. That one already had horns.
Right.
That was cool.
Yeah, I think that was a straight transcription, I think, maybe.
That one was really tight.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. They were grumpy at the amount of notes in that one. Because it's like... ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Sorry.
Like that one. We didn't write it.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry about some of the stuff that I did write for him. It's like, because I knew it was going to be a lot.
Yeah. Which ones... I'm trying to think of which ones are like the most notes. So... It's also funny we're talking about this, but the album does not come out for another 6 weeks. Wow. So, I mean, this won't come out for another month or so.
Okay.
But maybe let's talk about the song Vitamin D in the Shade a little bit, if you can recall that one.
Yeah.
Just because that one is going to come out next week.
Okay.
So, and then we'll probably wrap it after that.
That's the one I have a beef with you about.
Oh, the fanfare, the high trumpet?
And so here's another occasion. This is not to, well, you talked about before that we connected without having spoken about certain things, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of them because I listened to it. I thought, oh man, I know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I added a piccolo trumpet on the beginning of it.
Yep.
And then I even added a little taste of it just a little bit differently, only in one other spot. And you shot me down on it.
Brad, my
And you're right. You were right. Even though I think like later in the tune, that little spot.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was jonesing for that little lick. But
my condolences.
You were smart, for like because it could be perceived as maybe being too homagey to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't. I didn't want it to, and I think you didn't want it to get too cutesy.
I don't think cutesy
I don't know.
Is. I felt like it put it into a time and place that wasn't.
Yeah, no, I
Charlotte
get it.
in 2025.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to explain, I had written this song, and
it's a great tune too. It's such a big power ballad.
It's just a power ballad.
It's just great.
But like the hook of it and the way it leads in is just the most, to me, on the nose McCartney walk down.
Yeah.
Screaming for like this British George Martin fanfare. And I don't think I even said that that's what I was thinking.
Right.
I had like sent you the files and like you're sending it back and I'm sending you my notes and we're like Abbey Road classic, British fanfare, it's. Yeah.
And it works the way we ended up doing it, without the piccolo trumpet.
Yeah.
Because it still had those elements, that very pompous orchestral.
Totally. The Queen has arrived, right?
Absolutely, right.
It was like, reminds me of that, what's the Beatles song with?
Like Penny Lane? No,
is that what it is? I see, I know the melodies. I don't know the song names for anything. But it was reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
And... God, it's so good. But at the same time, they were writing that stuff in the mid-'60s from having grown up with it.
Yes.
In like that post-war boom.
Right.
So like, I don't know. That felt so specific to that time and place that to like, it felt like it was turning it into a tribute.
Yeah, I understood.
But... God, what you wrote was so lush. That was one of the ones where you added multiple layers and we double-tracked a lot of stuff.
I have, people probably won't be able to tell, which is good.
Okay.
But I have things weaving in and out quarterly, especially as that song builds, that you're not going to notice as a listener.
Yeah.
But boy, it's impactful.
So there isn't necessarily like one part is high, one part is low.
Oh, no,
they
might go.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And the lead into it, that was one of the ones where when you sent me, it was still the synth parts, but I heard it and I was like, this is the impact.
Oh, good.
Because, and we cut it live. So it starts with he clicks the drums, clicks 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And on 1, it's that huge A flat. And it's like, ba, ba, ba.
Awesome.
I'm just like, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's so good.
Well, again, I say really good songs write themselves. And so do, if the song is good, then the arrangement kind of tends to write itself too. So kudos to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The one thing that was really cool about that one, and going back and forth between the recording, the score, and the live show, we recorded that one, and when we were recording, Jake was just playing a huge solo.
Yeah.
And we were building the energy with him, and we're filling space. My chords are getting tighter as it goes on.
Right.
And that's we play together, so we know how to do that. And I know where he's going to peak it.
Yeah.
And you added in some counterpoint, like, while it was building. So, like, while he's building, you hit these, like, ba-da-da-da. And it, like, adds to it creates this drama. Yeah. And then by the time the whole thing is peaking, you switch from, like, that counterpoint to these huge pads. And that was so cool. Because coming from, like, improvisational land, we were just improvising a solo.
Yeah.
Right? But then you took that and then it crystallized it into like, this is the song. Like that,
Good.
And it was so cool.
Yeah.
And when we played it live, you then took that and transformed it into like our live score. Mm-hmm. And I like put the horns on a cue too. So I was like, we're going to vamp. When I cue you, pick up on that counterpoint.
Oh, cool.
So like Jake was playing a solo.
Yeah.
I don't ever know when he's going to hit the note. Like, I don't know what the note is going to be, but I know that he's going to play the note.
Right.
And that's where we're all going to go
nice
and get in behind him because, like, it starts ballady.
Yeah.
And at one point, he's going to switch it into rock gear. And it was really cool knowing that I had that, like, reinforcement that you had written.
Right.
And once he locked in and, like, hit the grit and started pushing it, I was like, come in on 1.
Yeah.
And then we did it, and it was like, I can't wait to put out the video of that. Oh, and I'll send you the clip. I've got it on my computer.
I love that.
It just like locked in, and the whole thing just like, everyone's kind of these floating rogue agents. And then all of a sudden, everyone just falls in line, and we're like in transit. So
good. That's, each little creation that you have is a child,
Yeah.
And so it makes me feel good that makes you feel good.
It was awesome.
It really does. It made me feel good too. So
right on. Well, I will probably wrap this just on one question about Charlotte and the local scene, just because that's been a big focus of why I'm doing this. Is just to talk about the local scene. We'll also shout out the city as well, as I told you before, that there's all the Charlotte Creative Mornings, the Charlotte Music Community Hangs. Yeah. But I did just get awarded one of their HUG grants. So like a local city grant to help get the gear for this, to help get it. I'm going to get a graphic designer to put together a logo for the show.
Nice.
We're going to try to actually make this a real thing, to tell the stories of like you and all the amazing, talented people that were making music, but we're not always talking about it.
Yeah.
So I would just love to hear of like your experience in town, or anything that you've been a part of that gets you excited, that has made you feel connected, something that you're just like grateful or excited for in the local music community.
I tell you, Joe, I've been really lucky to meet some of the younger and up and coming energetic folks like yourself, like you. Colby Dobbs is another one that I've worked with. There's another one.
That's how I got in touch with you.
Yeah, well, I know.
Yep.
So we talked about before. Well, how did this happen? And well, it's all word of mouth. It's like, I use this guy. Oh, and this,
Yep.
So I'm very, very thankful for that. Really, I am. You could have called anybody. And so I'm thankful that you did call me. So I'm really excited to meet bands and people like you, and Colby and all the other cats. It's very exciting. Not only because of the potential work for me, which would be great, but I'm excited for Charlotte,
right?
And for the future of us, because you guys are coming up, and man, the future's bright. It really is. It's really cool. It's exciting to see, because you can look at some of this stuff and say, oh, there used to be a lot more stuff here in my day. There was this, that, and the other thing. It's like, whatever. That's cool. It was true. Whatever. But now there's new stuff coming up, and people who are energetic and excited about making music. Yeah. I heard a band the other day. Actually, it was a couple months ago. And not to tout some other band, but I'm talking about like all these exciting new bands that are in the Charlotte area. A band called Unknown Artist.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever seen it. It's a little rock band. Got one guitar player, a female singer, female bass player, and drummer. That's it.
I'm gonna look them up.
Oh
Unknown
my
Artist.
God. That's energy for days.
Yeah.
Like you could harness that with Duke Power and run the city for a couple of days. It's awesome. But anyway, all that to say is that, all these bands, it's just fun to see starting to thrive. It's cool.
That's cool.
Love it.
Well, one of my favorite things is speaking good about people behind their backs.
Yeah.
And you've had a lot of people speaking good about you behind your back, that I'll oust them. But when we were putting together the parts, I know Max Gill was talking about you, and they were like, oh, we worked on Brad charts before. This is cool.
Oh, great.
I think Braxton might have said the same thing.
Cool.
So they were speaking high praises, because they ended up playing in the band that we did the live show with. We're doing it again in May.
Yeah.
We were also at Old House Recording Studio the other day, and Daniel Hodges was, what's the word for positive praise? It's in Portuguese. It's elogiar.
Okay.
I can't think of it in English. Speaking high praises.
Okay.
So they were hyping you up.
That's very nice.
So
yeah, I've done a lot of work out there too. Yeah, but he's a great guy.
Right on. Well, Brad, thank you for coming
man.
on. Thanks for making the cool music.
Sure.
Let me steal an hour of your time.
Okay.
Cheers.
Awesome.